Imagine surviving years of brutal warfare, crossing frozen rivers, fighting barbarians on distant frontiers, only to return home to Rome and die in your own bed. It sounds impossible, but for countless ordinary Romans, the most dangerous part of the day was not the battlefield. It was the moment they closed their eyes at night. Ancient Rome never truly slept. Fires spread through crowded neighborhoods, thieves climbed across rooftops, drunken gangs roamed narrow streets, and entire apartment buildings could collapse without warning. A soldier might survive arrows and swords, only to be crushed beneath rotten wooden beams while sleeping. Tonight, we are not following emperors or gladiators. We are following the average Roman citizen, a man who simply wants to survive until sunrise. As the sun disappears behind the hills, Rome begins to transform. The grand marble temples and bustling markets fade into darkness. Oil lamps flicker in windows, casting weak pools of yellow light onto filthy streets. Beyond those tiny circles of safety lies a city swallowed by shadows. Most Romans cannot afford proper lamps. Olive oil is expensive, and many families save every drop they can. Entire alleys become pitch black. Without streetlights, a simple trip outside can turn deadly. You cannot see the holes in the road, the abandoned carts, the stray animals, or the criminals hiding behind broken walls. Darkness itself becomes an enemy. A Roman worker finally reaches home after a long day. His home is not a beautiful villa with gardens and fountains. It is a cramped apartment high inside an insula, the towering buildings where most of Rome's poor live. The stairs creak beneath his feet. Wooden supports groan as neighbors argue through paper-thin walls. Entire families share tiny rooms no larger than a modern bedroom. The upper floors are the cheapest, but they are also the most dangerous. Builders often use weak timber and low-quality bricks to save money. Every night, thousands of Romans go to bed wondering if the building will still be standing by morning. The city grows quieter but not safer. Somewhere below, taverns remain crowded. Men gamble away their wages while cheap wine fuels arguments that often end with knives. Groups of young troublemakers wander through the streets looking for victims. Travelers, merchants, and lonely workers become easy targets. Roman historians complained constantly about nighttime violence. Wealthy citizens often traveled with armed slaves after sunset because they feared being robbed or murdered. If you hear footsteps outside your window, you do not know whether they belong to a neighbor or a killer. You simply hope they keep walking. Inside the apartment, another danger waits. The family lights a small oil lamp before sleeping. The flame is weak, but it provides comfort against the darkness. Unfortunately, almost everything around that flame can burn. Wooden furniture, straw mattresses, hanging cloth, old baskets, dry roof beams. One accidental movement, one curious child, one rat knocking over the lamp, and the entire room can become an oven. Ancient Rome had no smoke detectors and no organized fire department for most of its history. Many people never woke up once the fire reached their floor. The rats come out after midnight. Modern cities have rats, but ancient Rome was built for them. Open sewers, food waste, slaughterhouses, and crowded homes created a paradise for pests. You can hear scratching inside the walls. Sometimes they chew through bags of grain. Sometimes they steal scraps of food from sleeping families. And sometimes they run directly across people's bodies. Romans accepted this as part of daily life, but the real danger was invisible. Rats carried fleas and disease long before anyone understood how infections spread. A tiny bite in the darkness could become a death sentence days later. Above the family, someone is still awake. The upper apartment belongs to a baker who starts work before dawn. He drags heavy sacks across the floor while preparing for the next day. Another neighbor empties a chamber pot out of the window. A drunk stumbles up the staircase. A crying baby echoes through the building. Ancient Rome was astonishingly loud. Writers complained that sleep was almost impossible because carts, shouting merchants, barking dogs, and noisy neighbors never stopped. Exhaustion became normal. A tired person reacts slower, escapes danger less effectively, and makes deadly mistakes. Suddenly there's a crack. Not thunder. Not a door. The building itself. Tiny pieces of dust fall from the ceiling. The wooden beams shift with a deep groan. Everyone freezes. Apartment collapses happened often enough that Roman satirists joked about them. Corrupt landlords packed as many tenants as possible into unstable structures because repairing them cost money. The family stares upward, listening. After a few seconds, the noise stops. No one speaks. They simply lie back down and pretend everything is fine. Hours pass. The streets outside grow almost silent. Then another sound breaks the darkness. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Someone is climbing across the rooftops. Professional thieves knew that poor families kept their savings hidden inside the house because banks were not always trusted. A small bag of coins, a silver cup, even a pair of sandals could be worth stealing. The father reaches for a wooden club beside his bed. He knows that if someone enters the room, there will be no guards coming to help. Tonight he is his family's only protection. At last the first light of dawn appears. The family survives another night. They open the window and breathe the cool morning air. Across the city, smoke rises from several neighborhoods. Somewhere a building has burned. Somewhere else another apartment has collapsed. A merchant lies dead in an alley after being robbed on his way home. The father leaves for work as if nothing happened. Because this is normal. For millions of ordinary Romans, surviving the night was not a rare achievement. It was a daily battle. And strangely enough, for many of them, sleeping in Rome could be more dangerous than going to war. The average Roman probably feared one disaster more than thieves, disease, or even murder. Fire. It could begin with a forgotten cooking pot, a fallen oil lamp, or a single spark drifting from a bakery oven. In a city where most ordinary people lived packed together inside towering apartment blocks made of wood and cheap brick, flames spread with terrifying speed. You might fall asleep believing tomorrow would be another ordinary day. Then somewhere below your room, someone accidentally drops a lamp. Within minutes, your entire world is burning. Imagine waking in complete darkness. The air feels strange. It is hotter than before. You smell smoke. At first, your mind refuses to understand what is happening. Then you hear shouting outside. Someone screams that the building is on fire. The family leaps from their beds. There is no emergency exit. No alarm. No firefighters arriving with powerful pumps. Only a narrow wooden staircase already filling with thick black smoke. The difference between life and death is measured in seconds. The father throws open the door. Chaos. Neighbors are running in every direction. Children are crying. Someone falls down the stairs. Another person pushes past carrying a small chest filled with coins. People save what matters most. Some grab family statues. Some grab food. Some grab blankets. Others save nothing at all because panic steals the ability to think. The father looks back toward the room. Does he try to rescue his belongings, or does he carry his family outside immediately? Thousands of Romans faced exactly that impossible choice. The flames race upward. Modern buildings are designed to slow fires. Roman apartment blocks were almost designed to feed them. Wooden balconies catch first. Then roof beams. Then hanging cloth and furniture. The upper floors become giant ovens. People trapped above often climb onto rooftops, hopping to escape across neighboring buildings. But those roofs are old, weak, and dangerously uneven. One wrong step in the darkness, and you fall 4 or 5 stories onto the stone streets below. Many never reach the ground alive. Even if your own building survives, you are not safe. Rome is crowded beyond imagination. The narrow streets leave little space between homes. Fire jumps from roof to roof like a living creature. Ash falls from the sky. The heat becomes unbearable. Entire neighborhoods empty into the streets, creating massive crowds of frightened people. Parents lose children. Friends lose each other. The lucky escape with only the clothes they are wearing. The unlucky disappear forever beneath collapsing walls. But strangely, fire is not the only thing falling from above. Roman writers often warned visitors to avoid walking near buildings at night. Why? Because people threw things out of their windows. Garbage. Broken pottery. Rotten food. Animal bones. Even chamber pots filled with human waste. If someone happened to be walking below, that was simply bad luck. A sleeping family near an open window could wake to shattered pottery exploding across the floor. The city itself attacked its own people. Night also belonged to criminals. Roman law existed, but after dark it became much harder to enforce. Many streets had no guards at all. Small gangs waited near taverns and busy intersections, looking for drunk merchants or lonely travelers. Some thieves carried knives. Others simply beat their victims unconscious and took everything they owned. The worst part was that many attacks were never reported. Poor citizens often believed nobody would care enough to investigate. In Rome, survival frequently depended on avoiding trouble rather than expecting justice. Even the rich were afraid. A wealthy senator might own servants, bodyguards, and a comfortable villa, but traveling through the city at night was still dangerous. Ancient authors described nobles being carried through dark streets by slaves holding torches while armed escorts walked beside them. Not because they feared war, because they feared Rome. A single wrong turn into a narrow alley could lead to robbery or murder. If the elite were frightened of the darkness, imagine how ordinary workers felt. A Roman father finally returns home after checking that the fire has not reached his neighborhood. His wife bars the door with a heavy piece of wood. It is a simple lock, easy to break, but it offers at least the feeling of safety. The children lie back down. Nobody sleeps. Every creak of the building sounds like footsteps. Every distant shout sounds like another fire. Every barking dog makes the heart race. The night stretches endlessly. Sometimes the fear itself is more exhausting than the danger. Just before dawn, the city grows quiet again. The father closes his eyes for a few moments. Outside, smoke still drifts through the streets. Somewhere nearby, another family has lost everything they owned. Tomorrow they will search through ashes for coins, tools, or pieces of furniture that survived. Rome was called the greatest city in the world. Its armies conquered kingdoms. Its emperors ruled millions. But for the ordinary people packed inside its towering apartment blocks, every night was a gamble. The battlefield was far away. The real enemy was waiting just outside the bedroom door. Not every Roman died because of fire or violence. Some simply went to bed feeling perfectly healthy and never woke up. The strange part was that nobody understood why. Ancient Rome was a city overflowing with invisible dangers. The air carried smoke from thousands of cooking fires. The water flowing through public fountains could become contaminated. Rotting garbage sat in the streets for days. A person might blame evil spirits or angry gods. In reality, the greatest killers were things too small for anyone to see. Beneath the streets flowed one of Rome's greatest engineering achievements. The sewers. At least that is how history often describes them. But for ordinary people, those tunnels were dark rivers carrying human waste, dead animals, blood from slaughterhouses, and every kind of filth imaginable. The smell drifted upward through drains and cracks in the streets. Rats lived there. Insects multiplied there. Sometimes heavy rain forced the filthy water back into homes and shops. The city literally slept above a river of disease. The family's youngest child begins coughing. At first, nobody worries. Children get sick all the time. But by midnight, the fever arrives. The boy shakes beneath his blanket while his mother places a wet cloth against his forehead. There are no hospitals for ordinary citizens. No antibiotics. No understanding of bacteria or viruses. The family can only wait and hope the illness passes. For many Roman parents, the longest nights were spent watching a child struggle to breathe. If the sickness becomes worse, they call for a healer. The old man arrives carrying herbs, oils, and strange powders. He examines the child, then mutters that the body's balance has been disturbed. Perhaps there is too much heat. Perhaps too much cold. Perhaps an angry spirit has entered the house. His treatment might involve bloodletting, burning certain plants, or feeding the patient unusual mixtures. Some remedies helped. Many did nothing. A few made the illness even worse. Medicine in ancient Rome was often another gamble with death. The rats return. One runs across the kitchen floor. Another disappears behind a pile of grain sacks. The father reaches for a stick, but they are too quick. The family hates them because they destroy food. They do not realize the animals carry fleas. Tiny insects jump from rat to human without anyone noticing. Days later, someone develops a fever. Nobody connects the two events. The bite itself is forgotten. But history remembers that diseases often traveled through cities exactly this way. The danger arrived silently in the darkness. Then there are the insects. Mosquitoes gather around standing water outside the city walls. Fleas hide inside old blankets. Lice spread from crowded families sleeping side by side. Most Romans shared tiny rooms with several relatives. Personal space barely existed. Clean water was not always available for washing. One infected person could unknowingly pass sickness through an entire household. The enemy had no sword, no shield, no army, only a bite so small that nobody felt it. The family finally drifts into sleep. But outside, the city remains awake. Dogs fight over scraps of meat. Cats chase rats through alleyways. Donkeys pull heavy carts before sunrise because daytime traffic is restricted. The wheels crash against uneven stones. Merchants shout. Metal tools strike workshops. Roman poets complain that true silence did not exist. Night after night, poor sleep slowly weakened people's bodies. Exhaustion made illness harder to survive. The city itself stole your rest. A strange smell fills the room. The father opens his eyes. The small charcoal heater they used against the cold is still burning. The window is closed. The air feels heavy. Many Roman homes used simple braziers to produce warmth during colder months. Without proper ventilation, smoke and dangerous gases filled the room. People often believed bad air caused sickness. Ironically, in this case, they were partly right. Some families simply never woke after breathing poisonous fumes through the night. Across the street, an old woman dies quietly. She had survived famines. She had survived wars. She had survived raising 6 children. But she could not survive one winter illness. Neighbors gather outside her apartment. There is sadness but very little surprise. Death is familiar here. Almost every family has buried children, parents, brothers, or sisters. The average Roman does not fear death because it is rare. He fears it because it is always nearby. As the first rays of sunlight touch the rooftops, the little boy's fever finally breaks. His mother smiles with relief. Today he will live. Another child across the city will not. No battle decided their fate. No enemy army stood outside the walls. Ancient Rome did not need invaders to kill its people. Disease, smoke, rats, insects, poison, and exhaustion fought their own quiet war every single night. And unlike soldiers on the frontier, ordinary Romans could never see the enemy coming. At first, the idea sounds absurd. How could sleeping in a crowded city possibly be more dangerous than marching into battle with swords, spears, and arrows flying through the air? But for many Roman men, war was actually predictable. A soldier trained with his unit. He carried armor. He fought beside friends. He knew who the enemy was. At home, none of those protections existed. The enemy could be a collapsing roof, a hidden disease, a fire, a thief, or simple bad luck. The battlefield had rules. The knight in Rome had none. Consider the life of an ordinary legionary. He might spend months guarding a frontier far from the capital. His commanders organized camps carefully. Tents stood in orderly rows. Watches were assigned throughout the night. Every soldier knew when to sleep and when to stay alert. The Roman army survived because discipline created safety. Ironically, many veterans probably slept better inside a military camp than inside their own apartment back in the city. The place they called home was often the more dangerous one. Now picture that same veteran returning to Rome. He sells his old equipment and rents a room for his family. The apartment is high above the street because that is all he can afford. Every evening he climbs the old wooden stairs. Every night he checks the door. Every night he wonders whether the building will catch fire. He survived enemy blades. Now he fears a falling ceiling. History celebrates the wars of Rome. It rarely remembers the quiet struggles waiting after the soldiers came home. Darkness spreads across the city one final time. The markets close. The taverns grow louder. Oil lamps begin to glow behind cracked windows. Somewhere a baker prepares tomorrow's bread. Somewhere else a thief watches for an unlocked door. A mother rocks her crying baby. An old man coughs beneath a thin blanket. Thousands upon thousands of ordinary lives continue together beneath the same black sky. Every family believes they will see another sunrise. Not all of them will. A sudden cry echoes through the neighborhood. Fire. Again. People rush outside carrying whatever they can hold. A woman clutches a small statue of her household gods. A boy drags a basket filled with bread. An old man carries nothing because he cannot move quickly enough. The flames spread across the rooftop. Neighbors scream warnings from their windows. For one family, tonight will become the worst night of their lives. For everyone else, it is simply another reminder that tomorrow could be their turn. Far away, beyond the city walls, Roman soldiers sleep inside a fortified camp. Wooden stakes surround them. Guards patrol the perimeter. Watchfires burn through the darkness. If danger approaches, horns will sound. Inside Rome, there are no horns. No organized warning. No walls protecting the poor. The soldier outside the city knows exactly where the enemy will come from. The father inside the apartment does not. He only knows that danger is somewhere in the darkness. Family lies down one last time. The father places his wooden club beside the bed. His wife blows out the lamp. The children pull rough blankets over themselves. The room becomes silent. Above them, old beams creak. Outside, footsteps pass through the alley. Somewhere in the walls, rats begin scratching. Nobody says a word. In ancient Rome, courage was not always charging into battle. Sometimes courage was simply closing your eyes and hopping to wake up again. Morning finally arrives. The family survives. The father opens the shutters. The city is already alive. Merchants shout. Donkeys pull carts. Bakers light their ovens. Children run through the streets. If you looked only at the morning, Rome would seem like the greatest city on earth. You would never know how many people spent the entire night terrified, or how many never reached the dawn at all. History usually tells us about emperors, generals, and glorious victories. It tells us about great monuments and magnificent architecture. But the real Rome was built by ordinary people. Workers, mothers, children, slaves, shopkeepers, veterans. People who worried about rent, food, sickness, and whether their apartment would still be standing tomorrow. For them, survival was not measured by conquering foreign lands. It was measured one night at a time. So was sleeping in ancient Rome really more dangerous than going to war? For the average citizen, the answer may have been yes. War threatened only those sent to fight. The night threatened everyone. Fire did not care whether you were rich or poor. Disease ignored social class. A collapsing building chose its victims at random. A thief did not ask where you were born. Every sunset brought a new collection of dangers waiting beyond the weak glow of an oil lamp. And perhaps that is the strangest truth about the greatest empire in the ancient world. The Romans conquered kingdoms, crossed deserts, defeated mighty armies, and built wonders that still stand today. Yet for millions of ordinary people, the hardest battle was not fought on some distant frontier. It was fought every single night in a tiny dark room while they tried to sleep until morning.